Duncan's daughter gets a new figure, but is she disappointing? Here's a look at the Mattel Master Universe Masterverse, new Eternia, Teela. Teela embraces her destiny as the avatar of the goddess of New Eternia in her quest to restore the power of Grayskull. She may be the captain of the guard and all, but I still have my complaints. And those complaints will be discussed shortly. First, though, let's take the tape measure. And let's see how tall the new Eternia Teela stands. And of course, we'll also bring in some other examples as well. You know, it dawned on me, as it usually does when I start these reviews, it dawned on me, I don't have myself a 7-inch scale Teela. I don't. Nothing from the Revelation, nothing previously either. So we're going to have to bring in some other figures instead. Teela, in the meantime, is going to stand at 7 inches in height, working out to be a figure that's 17.5 centimeters tall. Because I don't have a Teela of this size, we'll have to use stand-ins that start with S. On one side, we have the Sorceress. On the other, She-Ra. Now, Teela and She-Ra are using the brand new bodies that make them a lot taller, obviously, so they cast, unfortunately, a really awkward shadow on the poor Sorceress. Sorceress, though, one thing that she does do better, though, she has much better paint on her face. Something, though, about the recent releases, Evelyn wasn't so bad, but I did notice, though, with She-Ra and now Teela, the faces are really off. It's almost as if, like, the sculpt is there, but the paint is the thing that lets it down. Not really speaking, though, with S's, but here's what they also look like with Battle Armor He-Man. Let's also bring in some other examples of Teela here, too. Here's what she looks like, then, with the Origins version of her, the one that came included with Zor, and also the Cartoon Collection Teela. Try too hard to separate the accessories that both come included with the side compartment, and those that were in the tray with Teela. In fact, the only thing that actually was in with Teela was her spear. The spear is really done nicely here in a gold plastic. As you can see, some decorative details adorn the blade here on the top. And this can, of course, be held in her hand. She does have, in case you're curious, 2 gripping hands already on the ends of her forearms. For the things that she does have, though, inside compartment tray, one thing that wasn't inside the bag, though, is that she does come include with her Serpent Scepter. Serpent Scepter. And boy, does it ever look good. I do like the coloring of it. It's not nearly the color, though, of what we got with the spear. The spear clearly is more of a gold color. This is kind of more of a bronzish brown. Boy, I've had a hard time getting that all out. It does have a little bit of gold down below here. It does look like something a serpent-wise, like maybe Serpentor or Cobra Commander would have as well. And it does have a bend. Now, I think the bend is supposed to naturally be like this. I can't think, though, that this was warped inside the packaging because it was, I mean, there was enough quarters, obviously, to accommodate the scepter sitting inside. Sitting alongside the scepter, the figure came included with a baggie. Now, ripping open the bag, the figure does also have a shield, and she does also have the Empress a crown or cowl piece, which will also be done in the serpent theme. Color-wise, though, I mean, the shield does look like it better suits more like the spear. So again, if you have the two displayed like this, I would imagine probably most people are probably going to be displaying Teela with the shield, with the spear. Not to make that assumption, really, but the figure does, like I said, does come included as well with the cowl piece. The cowl crest will then basically sit over top of her head in sort of the same way as the vintage toy, or the closest thing in proximity, the Origins figure of Teela I have here as well. Coloring-wise, though, instead of going with the brown that they went with the original toy, again, they went more with this kind of bronzish brown. I had an easier time getting it out this time. This basically will just fit over top of her head. I'm not going to do it just yet. Because there are things I want to discuss first. The figure does also come included with a couple of closed fists. Not the most exciting thing, I granted, understand, just because, again, like if you're going to have the figure holding anything, then having her with these on the ends of her forearms are going to defeat the purpose altogether. Let's talk a little bit about the shield here for a second. Now, the shield obviously is going to fit over top of her hand. You basically slide it up her forearm like this and clip it around her hand. You can also as well take the hand off, clip it on the handle, then put the hand back onto the forearm, or you can also just phone it in. You can just slide it really as far up the forearm as you can get it. And in most cases, it stays somewhat okay. I know it does. It could probably stay a little bit better. What's interesting, though, on the back of the packaging, they sort of sell, even the front of the packaging also does this as well, that the shield sits also on the back of her body. This is not something that you can perform successfully. There's no hook. There's nothing on the back of her body that allows the shield to sit there. So though while the front of the packaging, that I will show in a second, does sort of give the idea that Teela can actually have the shield on the back, it's not something that you can successfully do. Putting Teela down here for a second, can I just draw your attention? I'm going to bring the packaging right now. I found this was the same thing that they did with She-Ra too. You get yourself really nice artwork here for Teela, and again, you can see the shield that's on the back of her body. I mean, it's only just there for the illustration. She does also have the serpent scepter in her hand as well. Just look, though, at the sculpt and the paint on the face. I say sculpt and paint like I'm sort of talking about the action figure. Sort of look at the drawing and the way it's colored. This is the way that Teela really should have been. This is not at all what we're getting here for Teela. If you also just look on the back of the packaging, the face is, I think, still ugly. But they've done it with lighting, and of course they've altered it, I'm sure, as well, just to make it look a little bit better than it actually is. Let's move that out of the way. So my big real issue with Teela, well, there's a few things, really. It isn't so much like from the neck down. From the neck down, it's fine. There are a few little issues with color matching where the color doesn't quite match. You'll notice, like, for example, the top of her torso seems lighter than the colors on her arms as well as her legs. You can also look at it from the back as well to really see the difference in the change. I would imagine, though, they probably would have had to go in here and paint this skin color, and obviously just starting with white plastic. These would have then been molded in skin tone, and you can see why the colors don't match there at all. This is an acceptable thing. Like, if this was the only QC issue with Teela, I would be fine for that. The biggest draw and fault for this figure is still relies on her face. The face is disappointing. It's so funny, though, that even looking online prior to ordering Teela and having her arrive to my doorstep, I had already known that there was issues really with her eyes. I wanted to also check online to listings that they had of Teela, and sure enough, most of the images all have Teela with these awkward-looking eyes. The eyes don't look fully painted on the eyeballs themselves. In fact, it actually looks like the eyeballs. It looks like she's always looking up at something. What is she looking at? I don't even know. The face is one thing, really, that with the eyes being the problem when they're looking up, it doesn't look like they're painted properly. It almost even really looks like she's just bored. Poor Teela. I would just think that this figure is going to be doing this a lot on my shelf. It isn't so much even just the fact that the eyes are done wrong, but if you look at the eyebrows need to be a lot darker than what they actually are. I think also the lips could have been a little darker too. There's not nearly enough contrasting colors here to pull attention away from the fact that the eyes are ugly. It also seems too like her hair is wrong. Boy, oh boy, we're going to have a whole list of problems here. The hair isn't so much the issue, I find. It is actually the tiara. By deciding to have the tiara sculpted on the top of her head and not being something that could have been moved forward, it does look like it's awkwardly placed. I think what I rather would have done, especially considering that you could put the headdress piece on her, I would have actually opted instead to have the tiara as a separate piece, separate altogether. One thing that would have accomplished, it would have allowed you then to be able to move the tiara around to where you want to have it on the figure. It also meant it would have given some depth to the figure, because with the tiara sculpted the way that it is, it looks too conformed to her face. Does that make any sense? You need to have layers. You need to look at this and be able to see, okay, the tiara does look like it's a separate piece. It does need to have some foreground and some background to it. It just sort of all looks like it's all one molded piece, which essentially is what it is. Yeah, the tiara definitely needed to be lifted a bit. There's no enough space behind it. And it certainly did need to be moved forward. Not that that would have fixed it all, the problem, because tiaras can't fix the fact that she has a really bad face. She-Ra also had the same problem as well, where I liked the design of She-Ra, but I thought it looked better on the packaging. The paint was the thing that really did let this figure down. I still don't like the headdress piece that she has, but I gotta think, though, that if the face was only painted better, it probably would have really saved and made the figure look better than what it was. Teela, I feel, has that exact same problem. Body-wise, though, if you're looking at the two, it does look like they're using somewhat similar arms. Obviously, they would have had to tool a brand new band piece around her bicep. Different forearms, obvious in the sense that they have different guards, but it does look like they are sharing similar legs, which draws even more attention to the fact that She-Ra is very pale. Very, very pale. But again, like the height-wise, you can definitely see that this is where they want to move forward when it comes to the sizing of female figures, that they do want to make them bigger than, let's say, the likes of Sorceress, which again will just bring back her mom here. Quite the considerable height difference really between the two. But if you look at really like the original Sorceress, the paint was fine. The face was fine. I don't know what's really been changed here, whether maybe they've changed the factories, maybe they've even changed the department responsible for painting these figures, but the head sculpts lately have been off. Evelyn, again, was the exception to that, but I had a problem with Evelyn because the top of her head was misaligned, and a couple of people had that also as well. If you overlook like this part, I almost really feel like somebody needs to go in there and repaint these faces. I have seen, though, some talented people online that have gone in and corrected Teela's face, and it does have considerable improvement to the look of the figure. The rest, though, of the look of the figure does look good, though. I like the way that they've sculpted her fur there on the top. Actually, she's got this fur collar around the top. She's got some nice real use of gold there on the front of her bodice there, too. And she's got a skirting down below as well. Now, this is actually all softer plastic that is over top of her body. It probably just would be so much simpler than having to retool a brand new piece like this. I mean, if they had to sculpt the body underneath, I would think that that probably would be more expensive than sculpting and only producing the part that goes over top of it. Again, the gold looks good. The fur and the boots look good as well. If you were to just look at this figure and you didn't see the face from a side or a back glance, you would think to yourself, oh, that's not bad looking Teela. Until of course you had to see the paint problems all across her face. So again, if you want to take yourself the headdress piece, how it really does work is it's friction forced. Which again, like if you didn't have the tiara there, this tiara could have easily just been removed. I mean, I don't think you really would have had to need to put a hole there or anything like that just to keep the tiara in place. Providing it was shaped about the same size as her hair, the tiara could then have been something you just remove, just remove it when you want to put on the headpiece, the head collar piece. And it basically, again, all it is there's these little indentations on the side that fit basically around her ears. So when you fit this on her face, you want to kind of make sure that it's first a little bit more centered. Put this against her face, and then just push it in there. I mean, that's all it really requires. It's not going to be going anywhere. You don't have to worry that the headdress piece is going to be falling off. I feel like it does fix the figure's face only by just a little bit. The sculpting of it looks really good too. And again, if you like the look of the classic Teela, you probably would end up displaying her like that. It really does depend on how you really want to have her displayed on the collection shelf. I think most of the time I've displayed my original Origins Teela with the headdress piece on because it looks more like the original toy. I might follow that same suit, not just for the fact I want it to look like the original toy, but I think it also does kind of draw attention a little bit away from the fact that the paint has really let this figure down. For the figure's articulation, let's take this back off for here a second. Teela, with her tiara, does have a ball joint for her head. It doesn't give you, granted, much way in the way of poseability. I mean, you can only, again, really move her head up and down just by a little bit. The head also rocks back and forth as well, and you can rotate the head all the way around. Even though she does have a collar on the back of it, it doesn't seem to get in the way at all of allowing the head to do what it's doing right now. The arms do rotate all the way around. There's a hinge that allows easily for the arms to go out at a T pose or even a little higher than that. The figure does have a swivel here in her forearm, a bend in the elbow, hands rotate all the way around, and a hinge there as well. The upper torso is going to be on a ball joint. I say that term very loosely because it doesn't really do a whole lot. I mean, yes, it does rock back and forth, more really than it does up and down. She does also have a waist swivel. Legs do split out, they're on ball joints. They go forward, they go back. There is, though, a gap space between the legs and the tops. You can bring them up just a little bit, but you'll always really notice that there's a gap right here. I think it's just to allow movement forward and back, but it does feel sort of like the legs struggle a bit to get a high kick going. I mean, as you push this up, you'll see it does seem to want to force it back down. So the gap really doesn't do anything more than just being an eyesore. She does have a full leg splits, 3/4 of the way up the thigh. The figure does have a leg swivel, so you can rotate that all the way around. She does have a double hinge in the knee. Yes, she does. Articulation here, though, in the top of the boots, an ankle pivot up and down, an ankle rocker there as well. So much so is wrong with Teela's face. So much so is right with the rest of Teela's body. Yeah, there are a few little issues. Obviously, having to go in there and paint the skin tone over white plastic did then result in having the torso being a little lighter of a skin coloring than her arms, than her legs. But that's a small thing, with the greater problem really being her face. It again is really a reminder when we looked at She-Ra, that She-Ra was, I think, a fine figure. I know some people didn't really like the look of her armor. I liked what they were going with, but I liked it a lot more when I saw it on the packaging. Teela, I feel, really feels the same way. When you look at the packaging of her, and I'm just going to leave that here, there's not really much change between the original idea and the illustration of her to how she's then interpreted in plastic, but something so went wrong when it came to painting her face. The tiara needed to be bigger. I felt like it needed to be more to the foreground. It needed to be really a separate piece, so it gave some sense of depth to the figures, to the hair. But the face is really the thing that lets the figure down the most. I wish that the eyebrows would have maybe been painted kind of in a dark red. There would have been a little bit more like eyeshadow or something around the eyes just to give it a little bit of layers to it. It just feels like the figure, the lower half of the body, I feel like feels like a Mattel release. The face does feel like it's a knockoff, and I hate to really say it the way that I am, because again, like if you look at the way that they've illustrated Teela on the front, on the side, it's a great looking design of the character, but it so terribly lets the figure down when you actually see it in hand. Again, what I might just end up doing, as I did mention earlier, is I might take, though, the serpent headdress piece and put that actually on her face, just to take attention away from the fact that they really let the figure down when it comes to the paint. So what went wrong with Teela? Well, I can tell you what went wrong with Teela. It was her face. The face, you gotta think, I really would have liked to have seen what the prototype would have looked like, all done in gray. You know, of course, before they get the final production shots of what the figure's going to look like. I would have liked to have seen the unpainted head sculpt, just to be able to 100% say, while the face was ugly right from the moment it was molded, I don't think that was the case at all. I think what we may have had, like we would have had with She-Ra, was probably a really good molded face long before it went to the paint department. Somehow between the production of the mold and what we finally got in the finalized figure, something again missed its mark. And again, I could be the person just behind the camera. No experience at all, I can say, when it comes to developing, producing, or manufacturing figures. But I can tell you what I like and what I don't. And there are things that when I look at Teela, I think to myself, yeah, the tiara needed to be a separate piece. It needed to be higher. It needed to be further forward on the front of her face. And there definitely needed to be a lot more paint, a lot more time spent to perfect things like her eyebrows, darker colors around her eyes, and maybe even adding a little bit of extra coloring to her lips. Because unfortunately, though, that's the thing that you're going to be continuing to look at on a figure. The rest of the body could be still fine and have all the poseability that it should have. But if it lets you down in the face, that's the one thing that you're going to be constantly looking at and constantly being bothered by every time you get a glance of her. Now, I've got her currently with the shield in one hand. I had to take, obviously, the hand off the forearm, slip it onto the handle, pop the hand back in place. That's what the professionals all do when it comes to attaching shields. And then, of course, I've got the spear in her other hand. Not really going to be the way I'm going to have the figure displayed. Instead, choose and go with the Serpent Empress, the goddess. I'm going to have her displayed that way. I think just for one reason, because again, I want to have her look kind of like the vintage toy. But again, like I said earlier, I think it's going to draw more attention away from her face. We don't want to draw attention too much to her face. We want to do the opposite. What do you guys think of new Eternia Teela? A letdown? Big disappointment? Weigh in your thoughts. Let me know what you guys think of it down below in the comment section. Also, if you had picked up this figure, let me know if it is a better paint or worse paint than the one we looked at in this video. I have actually, in fact, looked at several Teela listings online, and even the up-close shots all have Teela with wonky eyes. Why did Teela have to have wonky eyes? I hope you haven't had any wonky eyes looking at this video. I mean, obviously, if you did enjoy it, do it a solid. Yeah, throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. Hit the subscribe, turn on that bell so you're going to get the reminders every single time a new video posts. And speaking of which, there will be, in fact, more videos coming your way. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.